Okay, so I think everything's okay. So welcome back. Again, my name is Ricardo Montoya. I am your English teacher in the University of Guanajuato, we are going to continue speaking about time tenses. We have spoken about the simple present, the simple past, the simple future, the present continuous, and the past continuous. If you haven't checked any of those videos, I really recommend you to go back a little bit and check them, because they are very similar to each other. And once you understand how they are working, like in general, then it's gonna be easier to know what we are speaking about, okay? So first, we're gonna be speaking today about the future continuous, okay? The future continuous. Or future progressive. Again, the name is not important. You're gonna find it with different names in different books. It is utilized to speak about actions that will be in progress at a certain point in the future. It means that an action will be in progress at a certain point in the future. Okay, so for example, this is your sentence. I will be watching a game. And then this is a point in the future. Tomorrow at this time, tomorrow at 6 p.m., like let's say that today it is 5 p.m. So in 25 hours, I will be watching the game. In 25 hours, I will be in the middle of watching a game. This action will be in progress. The game hasn't started yet. The game is in 25 hours. The game is tomorrow. The game is in the future. But it will happen tomorrow. It starts at 5 p.m. and it ends at 7. So at 6, the person will be in the middle of the action of watching the game. These games, tomorrow, the game starts at 5. It finishes at 7. So tomorrow at 6, I will be in the middle of watching the game. That is when you use the future continuous. The future continuous is used again to explain, or well, to speak about things that will be in progress at a specific time in the future. Okay, so let's check. How do we use it? We know when to use it or why to use it, but we don't know how. It says the future continuous uses the auxiliary to be. Again, when you have a continuous time, remember, when you have a continuous time, sorry, I didn't choose the correct one. Okay, when you're using the continuous time tenses, it means that the verb is always in gerund, and the auxiliary is always the auxiliary to be. I don't know if you remember, but in the simple present, the auxiliary, well, in the present continuous, sorry, present continuous, the auxiliary was the verb to be in the present. What is the verb to be in the present? Am, are, or is. The auxiliary for the for the present continuous is am, are, or is. What was the auxiliary for the past continuous? You remember? The auxiliary for the past continuous was, again, the verb to be, but not in present, but in past. What is the past of the verb to be? Was or were. In this case, we are speaking about the future continuous. What do you think the auxiliary for the future continuous is going to be? Again, the verb to be. The auxiliary is the verb to be. But the verb to be not in the present and not in the past. In the future. So what is the verb to be in the future? As you remember, verbs have 6 conjugations in English. They can be in the base form, in infinitive, in gerund, in present, in past, and in past participle. So they don't have a future conjugation. Sorry. So what do? Instead of using, the verb to be in the future, you don't have a conjugation for the verb to be in the future. The only way to do it is using the auxiliary for the future will plus the verb in the base form, will be. My auxiliary is 2 words long. The auxiliary is will be. I have 2 words that are doing the function of being the auxiliary. Remember, it's always will and it's always be. Be is in the base form. So because it is in the base form, you always need to use be. It doesn't matter what the person is. He will be, I will be, you will be, she will be, they will be. It always will be. It's never wills. It's never will is. Nothing like that. If you use will be, you remember that will means certainty, like you're making a promise. If you don't want to make a promise, you can use probably or maybe, or you can change the auxiliary will and use maybe or might be. I might be traveling. I may be traveling. I will be traveling. When you say will be traveling, it's like a promise. It's like 100% certainty, okay? So in this case, it is very simple. We have again, subject, affirmative statement. This is an affirmative statement. So you have your subject, your auxiliary. Your auxiliary is the verb to be in the future, so will be. Your verb is in gerund, traveling. And then you have your complement. And with a future time. This means that at this time, next Thursday, in 1 week, in 5 days, in whatever, next Thursday, my boss will be in the middle of traveling to Spain. Okay? So at this time in the future, this person will be in the middle of this action. For example, if you want to make it negative, my subject, and in this case, it's a little different. It is a little complicated because we have an auxiliary that is 2 words. My auxiliary, let me just erase this part so that we can make sense of it. My auxiliary, sorry, I needed to. My auxiliary is a little complicated because it has, it has 2 parts. It has will and it has be. My auxiliary is made of 2 parts. What happens when my auxiliary is made with 2 parts? If I want to make a negative, normally my auxiliary takes the negative, but I will not say my boss will be not or will bond. I never say that. What I need to do is I have 1, sorry, that looks like a 2. 1 and 2. I have 2 parts. When I want to make a negative, only the first part takes the negative. So I don't say my boss will be not. I say my boss won't. The first part take the negative and the second part of the auxiliary remains normal. So I have my boss, the first part takes the negative, the second part remains normal. This is my auxiliary in negative, won't be, will be, and won't be. Then what do I need? I need a verb in gerund, traveling, and then a complement to Spain next Thursday. So my boss will not be in the middle of this action next Thursday. This day, the next Thursday, that day in the future, my boss won't be in the middle of this action. Yeah? And it gets a little bit more complicated even, because again, my auxiliary, my auxiliary, you remember, has 2 parts. This is the first time that this happens. My auxiliary has 2 parts. It has part 1 and part 2. When I want to make a question, normally my auxiliary switches positions with the subject. Yeah? Will I be? Am I going? Is she doing? Do you like? In this case, my auxiliary is 2 words. What happens when I have 2 words? I don't move the 2 words. You never say, will be my boss traveling. What you do is you break your auxiliary, and only the first part of the auxiliary switches positions with the subject. Will my boss be traveling to Spain next Thursday? Yeah? So what you have is auxiliary, well, the first part of the auxiliary, your verb, your subject, auxiliary subject, the second part of your auxiliary, you have to break the auxiliary. The verb with ing and the complement. This is a yes, no question. Will my boss be traveling to Spain next Thursday? Yes, he will, or no, he won't. ¿Ok? Déjenme explicar esto una vez más en español, porque esta parte es muy importante, nos va a pasar más adelante otras veces. Este es el primer tiempo que se pone un poco complicado, porque ¿cuál es el auxiliar del futuro continuo? Ok, vamos a empezar otra vez, perdón. ¿Para qué sirve el futuro continuo? El futuro continuo sirve para hablar de eventos que van a estar en progreso en un momento en el futuro. Ahorita, en este momento, esto todavía no ha empezado. Esto es para mañana, para pasado mañana, para en la noche. Mañana hay un juego y es a las 5 de la tarde. Mañana a las 6 voy a estar viendo el juego. O sea, el juego es mañana, pero mañana a esa hora yo voy a estar en medio de la acción de ver el juego. ¿Tiene sentido? Ok. Ahora, la parte importante es que el auxiliar en el futuro continuo es el verbo to be en futuro. El auxiliar en el presente continuo es el verbo to be en presente, am, are o is. El auxiliar en el pasado continuo es el verbo to be en pasado, was o were. El auxiliar en el futuro continuo es el verbo to be, pero en futuro. Recuerden que el verbo to be no se puede conjugar a futuro, no tiene una conjugación en futuro. Entonces, ¿qué hacemos? Usamos will be. El futuro de will es will be. Las dos palabras. Siempre will, no importa quién sea el sujeto. Recuerda que no existe wills, ni willed, ni nada parecido, y siempre es be, siempre va en forma base. Entonces tenemos el gran problema de que mi auxiliar son dos palabras. Mi auxiliar es will be. Mi auxiliar son dos partes. No es ningún problema, decimos en afirmativo, my boss will be traveling to Spain. Sujeto, auxiliar, verbo con ing y complemento. No hay ningún problema. El problema es cuando los queremos hacer negativos o cuando queremos hacer preguntas. Porque como ahora tenemos el auxiliar, que son dos palabras, no sabemos dónde poner el negativo y no sabemos cómo hacer la pregunta. Cuando nuestro auxiliar es de 2 o de 3 o hasta de 4 palabras, vamos a llegar a esos, cuando tengamos un auxiliar muy largo, que sea de más de una palabra, ¿quién se lleva el negativo? No pones el negativo al final, no le pones el negativo a todo el auxiliar, no pones, no pones algo así como will be not. Eso no se puede, y menos algo así como will be. Esto está terriblemente mal, no se puede. ¿Qué es lo que pasa? Lo que pasa es que cuando tengo el will be, el negativo se lo lleva solo la primera mitad del auxiliar. Entonces, lo partes en dos y entonces solo la primera mitad del auxiliar se lleva el negativo. My boss won't be. Y ya estuvo. ¿Qué pasa cuando vas a hacer una pregunta? Normalmente, para hacer una pregunta, ustedes tienen sujeto, auxiliar, verbo y complemento. Y para hacer una pregunta, el auxiliar cambia de lugar con el sujeto. Pero ¿qué pasa si mi auxiliar son dos palabras? Si yo tengo auxiliar, auxiliar, verbo y complemento. Es un solo auxiliar, pero está partido como en dos. Will be. ¿Qué pasa? Que solo la primera parte del auxiliar es la que cambia su lugar con el sujeto. Will my boss be traveling to Spain? Va a estar mi jefe viajando a España. ¿Estamos bien? Espero que esto haya quedado más claro. Aquí en la parte negra dice, the auxiliary for this time tense is the verb to be in the future, so it is will be. I will be, you will be, he, she, it will be, we will be, you will be, they will be. It's always will be, and the sentence is always in gerund. Okay? To make negative statements and questions, we have the problem that the auxiliary has two parts, will plus be. Whenever the auxiliary is more than one word, only the first part, will in this case, needs to take the negative or change places with the subject to make a question. So this is pretty much what we have been speaking about, okay? If you have any questions, anything that you don't really understand, please write it down and let me know in the comments. I will make more examples. I will make another video explaining specifically what you need, if that's the case. And I don't know, we can also check it during our soon class, Zoom class, soon, sorry. Okay, now another important thing, well, we have it here. Affirmative statements, negative statements, yes, no questions, information question. Remember, this is something that we have been speaking about since the beginning of the course. We were saying that every sentence in English is one of these four. Everything you say in English is an affirmative statement, a negative statement, a yes, no question, or an information question. So everything you say in English is these four elements, And the only thing that you have to do is change the order of these elements. So everything in English has the same structure. Subject, auxiliar, verb, and complement. Subject, auxiliar with negative, verb, and complement. Auxiliar subject, you switch them, verb and complement. Question word, auxiliar subject, verb, and complement. So in this case, because we have the future perfect, then we have something like this. We have subject, subject. Affirmative statements start with the subject. Negative statements start with the subject. Auxiliary will be, auxiliary won't be. Remember that when the auxiliary is two parts, only the first part takes the negative. Then we have a verb, always with ing, eating, eating. And then we have a complement, pizza and pizza. I will be eating pizza, you will be eating pizza, you won't be eating pizza. What is the meaning of this? At a certain point in the future. Tomorrow, you won't be eating pizza. Tonight, you won't be eating pizza. You won't be in the middle of doing that. What happens when you have a question? When you have a question, the auxiliary goes first and the subject goes next. The problem is, in this case, you have two words doing the auxiliary. Normally, the auxiliary switches positions with the subject. In this case, only the first part of the auxiliary switches positions with the subject. You don't say will be I, you say will I be, okay? And then you have your verb, always with ing, and then you have your complement. Will I be eating pizza? Yes, you will. No, you won't. This is just a question that you ask. Okay, remember the only thing that you have to do, you have two auxiliaries. Well, you don't have two auxiliaries. Your auxiliary is two words. So only the first word takes the negative, only the first word switches positions with your subject. In this case, we have the same, we have the auxiliary, sorry, the complement, the auxiliary is will be. But because it is a question, the first part of the auxiliary, switches positions with the subject. And then you have a verb with ing. And the only difference, these are the same. The only difference is that in this case, you start with a question word. If you start with a question word, this is an information question. Why will I be eating pizza? I want to know the reason. So you will be eating pizza because blah, 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 blah. They are going to tell you exactly what it is. Just to finish, the final part is with every time tense except the simple present and the simple past, the verb to be is a normal verb like any other. So in the future continuous, the verb to be is like any other verb. So you say, subject, auxiliary, and what happens if I want to use the verb to be? I use the verb to be with ing, like any other verb. Marcus will be being. Will be is my auxiliary, being is my verb. And then you have your complement. What is the meaning of this? Marcus va a estar siendo un problema o estará siendo un problema. Recuerden, otra vez, el verbo to be es una excepción muy importante en el presente simple y en el pasado simple. Funciona diferente. Si no vieron esos videos, por favor, empiecen por ahí, empiecen por orden. Pero de ahí en adelante, desde el futuro, el presente continuo, el pasado continuo y ahora el futuro continuo, en todos los demás tiempos nos damos cuenta que el verbo to be es como el verbo eat, como cualquier otro. ¿Cómo lo conjugamos? Bueno, nuestro auxiliar es el mismo, will be, el verbo con ing, eating, being. Y ya, nada más. Es cualquier otro verbo, no tiene ninguna cuestión que lo haga funcionar diferente. ¿Sí? Entonces, bueno, hasta ahorita hemos visto presente simple, pasado simple, futuro simple, presente continuo, pasado continuo, futuro continuo. Ya llevamos 6 de los 12 tiempos que les dije. Nos faltan otros 6, nos faltan los tiempos perfectos y los tiempos perfectos continuos. Nos falta ver cómo funcionan, cuándo escogerlos. Y después vamos a seguir, vamos a llegar a la voz pasiva, vamos a llegar a... todavía falta bastante aquí, es un montón de información, espero que no se confundan. Por favor, tomen notas. Les voy a dejar ejercicios en la plataforma en la plataforma que usemos. Ahí voy a hacer, todavía no escojo bien cuál, todavía no sé ni siquiera qué grupos voy a tener, pero les voy a ir dejando ejercicios que tengan que ver con estos temas. Aquí están las explicaciones y cualquier cosa, bueno, me pueden preguntar directamente dentro del grupo de WhatsApp que creo que vamos a tener, me pueden preguntar por correo, me pueden preguntar en los comentarios del video que va a estar en YouTube y también me pueden preguntar directamente y lo checamos durante las sesiones interactivas de Zoom. Okay, so thank you very much. I think that's it for today. I hope you get it. I don't want to make it any longer than it has to be. It only gets more confusing. So thank you very much. If you want to go and rest, I think you earned it. Okay, so thank you very much. See you.